Hey everybody, even though I have this amazing video trailer that does everything under the sun that I could possibly need to do for video productions, it doesn't always work for every event that we do. Like, this thing is big, it's heavy, it kills my gas mileage when I tow it, and there's a number of times when it's just plain overkill for what we happen to be doing. And there's other times when I can't use it. Say, for example, if I'm doing a video production on an upper level of a tall building, there's just no easy way to get my fiber cable, my fiber trunk cable, down to a parking lot where my trailer is parked. So for those situations, I have this. This is my Flypack. And honestly, I use this for, I don't know, about 40% of the events that I get hired for, where the trailer makes up the rest of them. So this does get used a lot, and I don't talk about it much here on the channel because, well, frankly, it's just not quite as exciting as the trailer. But I do use this quite a bit, and I just recently upgraded this, and if you wanted to see the entire build of this thing, I did live stream the entire process. 3.5 hours worth. That video is on the channel. So if you want to check that out, that is available to anybody who wants to see it. But bottom line is, this has been rebuilt with a new video switcher. You know, Blackmagic announced a new Constellation HD series switchers. About 2 months ago now, I guess, a little less than. And I got the 2ME Constellation switcher and I put that in here and have rebuilt this rack around that. So with that said, I want to give you all a tour of what's here and kind of talk about why I selected what I did and talk about the capabilities of this, because this is very, very powerful. It's probably 85% of the functionality of my trailer in a tiny little rack. So let's just jump in and take a look. All right, so here we have the front of the unit. This almost all Blackmagic design equipment, which I'm sure doesn't surprise people who watch this channel very much. I'm starting up at the top here. The first three rack spaces are taken up by the SmartView Duo. This is a dual LCD monitor, rack mounted, obviously. I've had this thing for, it's over 6 years at this point. I got this thing early 2016, probably, like January, I think. SDI monitor, dual monitor, obviously. It's not an amazing set of monitors. Contrast is not great. The resolution, I think, is only about 800 by 480, so it's not even high def. As I look at the text here, it's actually a little bit hard to read, hard to make out. It's just a little bit too small for this resolution of monitor, but it works. I've looked into it. There's nothing else that's quite like this. If you want 7-inch monitors, there's several different options out there, but if you want to go to 8 or larger, this is really the only game in town. I really wish Blackmagic would update this and with something at higher resolution. Give us at least 1080p, if not 4K. But anyway, it is what it is. It does its job. It does what it's supposed to. It allows me to see the signals with enough clarity. And the fact that it's SDI makes it really handy because everything in this rack is SDI. So anyway, works well enough. All right. Moving down, we have the ATEM 2ME Constellation HD. This is the switcher just announced a few weeks ago. I got my hands on one. I previously had a Television Studio HD in here, which worked okay, but I was always limited by the 4 SDI inputs that thing had. I very regularly run more than 4 sources, and if I wanted to run more than that, I had to get out an SDI to HDMI converter in order to use one of the HDMI sources on, or HDMI inputs on that. This one, 20 SDI inputs, 12 SDI outputs, 2 MultiView outputs besides. Those outputs are multi-purpose, so you're able to send any of the video sources that are internal in the switcher or reroute any of the inputs back into that. With one exception, the MultiView outputs are not available as part of that. I did find a workaround though, and I'll get to that in a bit. But HD only, no 4K on this unit, which is fine because most of my clients don't even know what 4K is most of the time anyway. But yeah, so you got buttons to control the sources here, auto and cut on there. You can actually do a simple basic switch on here. You've got buttons here to turn upstream key 1 on and off of program, as well as downstream key, a button to do fade to black, a few sources here, and then buttons to choose the input, the transition source for the auto button. Got a little LCD here for monitoring. Also has audio level meters on it there, so you can kind of get an idea for where your audio is at. a knob for navigating the menu, and then buttons for accessing the menu there as well. Something that I think is new on these is the ability to control the audio mix from here. So I don't have to go into any menus in order to access the audio mix. I just physically actually rotate this knob, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it is adjusting the audio level on there. If I want to adjust the audio level for a particular source in the mix, I just basically hit that button, put it on preview, and then I can adjust that level right there. So you get some real basic audio mixing capabilities right from the front panel without having to navigate into a menu. Okay, that said, let me cut away there. There's also on the front some buttons and a jack for doing intercom. I'm probably not going to be using that because I have intercom covered another way, which I'll get to in a moment. Coming down here, we've got 3 units. We've got a HyperDeck Video Pro, which is an older unit at this point. It hasn't been made for a while. And then I have a HyperDeck Studio Mini, the original model from 2017. And then next to that, I have the newer version of it, the HyperDeck Studio Mini HD. And those choices were deliberate. Talk a little bit about why. So this older unit, one of the main reasons I continue to use those in my trailers is because they support 4K at up to 30 frames per second. This rack is fully HD, so I'm not taking advantage of that, but I am taking advantage of another feature that's unique to this model that's not included in the newer one, which is separate A and B SDI outputs. What that allows me to do is alpha channel overlays. So on my upstream or downstream keys, I can do basically partially transparent, very clean, very nice, high quality overlays. And I do that a lot. And including this unit, this older unit, with those separate SDI outputs for fill and key, allows me to do that very easily. So whenever I have a chance, I will pre-render graphics for an event, pop them onto an SD card, put them in this unit, and then this unit is used exclusively for playback with the capability of doing alpha channels, which is amazing. It takes the production level way higher than it would be otherwise. So a great feature to take advantage of, something that I didn't really have before because I couldn't afford to have a single unit taking up 2 inputs on a switcher that only has 4 SDI inputs. And coming over here to the last unit on this level, this rack space, is the newer version of the HyperDeck Studio Mini HD. This is essentially here exclusively for recording. I don't intend to do playback on this. I record every event that I shoot for my clients, no matter what, even if they don't ask me to, just because. It's always good to have an archival copy. And if nothing else, if there's a problem with the live stream, I will always have a recording that we can re-upload later. Just higher quality without potential glitching that tends to happen with live streaming occasionally. So there's that unit is there for that. And the HDMI output of this is routed over here to the HyperDeck Video Pro. It only has HDMI, no SDI on that. And the theory there is that whatever I'm recording, I will probably also be streaming, and vice versa. If I'm streaming, I'll probably be recording it. So those get the same signal. The reason I've stuck with this one rather than going to something else, well, first of all, I have it. It works really well. But even in the newer unit, the newer version of this, the HyperDeck Video X, it's actually lost a number of capabilities that I take advantage of. So the newer one, if you wanted, first of all, this device has a feature that's called bonding. So I'm able to bond multiple internet connections together in order to give me additional redundancy. So in case one internet connection goes down or becomes flaky, I can actually share another internet connection as well. And this unit will do that better than the newer Video X. So I can tether both Ethernet and a USB modem to it in order to get bandwidth there, but I can also tether up to 4 phones with this one, whereas the newer Video X only lets you do 1. So it's not very often that I have to do that, but when you need that capability, you need that capability, and so it's super nice to have that. The only real limitation about this one that I don't love is that it maxes out at 5 megabits per second on the uploads for streaming, which for 1080p is kind of barely enough for a decent quality. So I wish I could go higher, but that's kind of its limitation. But other than that, it works with the ShareLink subscription that I already have, which I utilize here in my trailer. And I can share that with my Video X as well. So I'm not having to purchase multiple subscriptions across multiple devices. I'm able to share that very easily. The last unit here in this rack space is the Studio Converter 2 from Blackmagic. This unit is there to convert video SDI signals to and from fiber. So what I'm able to do, and I'll show you an example here in a minute, is I'm able to connect the cameras that I have at an event up to this unit over fiber cables. And that fiber cable provides not just video from camera, but also sends return video back to camera, so the camera operator can see on a screen what's going on program. And it also provides intercom as well. So I'm able to do intercom and send videos to and from with a single cable. Again, I will demonstrate that here in a bit. The other fun thing about this thing is it actually has a speaker on the front. And let me switch to a source that actually has some audio here. So cut over here. If I press this button here, I can actually listen to program audio on this unit, control the volume with the knob here. So if I'm not taking advantage of the intercom here, I can use this as a speaker to monitor what's going on with my stream. Alright, on the flip side, that's where I have all of my connections. Start up here with power. So I just used an inexpensive multi-switch power distribution unit that I got online. I did add my own Neutrik twisting power con connector to it. That way I can very easily disconnect the power cable, and when it's connected, I know that it's locked in place and it can't come out accidentally. So much more secure than your typical IEC power cable that you see most devices use. So power comes in there, and then I've got switches for most of the major components that are in here. All right, behind this unit, and you can't see it, is an Ethernet router. So my internet router for this device. It's an Asus. I forget which model it is. Just fairly basic, but it has Ethernet in and out, and also provides Wi-Fi, and that's what these antennas on here are actually connected to. So instead of having the antennas connected to the device and having it buried inside, I actually extend those out to the outside, so I know that I can get a nice high quality connection for devices that I'm using that need to connect to the internet. So I provide my own Wi-Fi signal for me and my crew when we need that, but at the same time, I never stream over Wi-Fi. That's just there for convenience for those of us on the crew. I'm never actually sending any video signals over that Wi-Fi. All right, moving down to the next one. This is a TP-Link switch. It's a 16-port switch. It's a smart managed switch. So I can take advantage of things like VLANs. In fact, I've done that here, so virtual LANs. That basically allows me to split up this one device into multiple networks. So I've got my primary network, which is what I call private here, which is basically my private local area network. And then I have a network for audio, and then I have a network for internet, and then on top of that I actually have a couple of admin/trunk ports over here, which would be used to send any of those VLANs or all of those VLANs back to my video production trailer. So if I needed to produce a separate program from what I'm producing in my trailer, I can use my Flypack to do that and have full communication both directions over that. So I can be able to share audio with anything here in the trailer, or share the internet connection with here in the trailer. And because all the devices can be powered on and off individually, I can flip off the router here and use the router here in my trailer in order to provide internet access for any of the devices that are in this rack. So just kind of a cool functionality to be able to break those out into separate networks, but at the same time share any of those networks with ones that are here in my trailer. Okay. Speaking of networks, I have on as an option, I have a TP-Link media converter, which converts any of the Ethernet to fiber. As I was shopping for switches, I had a hard time finding anything that was affordable, that had provided all this capability, power over Ethernet, and fiber as well, without getting too big, too bulky, requiring too much power, getting too hot, being too noisy. And this was kind of the compromise I had. Used a 16-port switch that has smart management. It also has power over Ethernet, and then if I need to do fiber, I would just connect a media converter up to that. So this is here in place. Just have a little jumper cable going up to the admin port, and then if I need to, when I need to connect to my trailer or whatever, I could just pop a fiber cable into the SFP module that's in there. Next to that is a Blackmagic optical fiber converter. This maps to a couple of inputs and outputs on my switcher. It's SDI on the back and then fiber here. The main reason I have this one is it's very common for me to be able to need to connect up a laptop and provide a projector feed out of this. And I use fiber cables to make those long runs. And this provides me a fiber connection that's separate from those that are going to and from camera. And so if I need to send output that's different from what the camera operators are seeing, I can do that over this device. So I can use, like, for example, the second MixFX engine on my switcher to drive the projector with iMag and send that video signal over a fiber cable connected here. Speaking of fiber, we come down here to the bottom, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 fiber connectors that I've put behind these little doors. It doesn't matter how much I drill into my camera operators' heads, and the fiber connections are delicate, and we have to do what we can to prevent dust from getting in and out. They just don't seem to listen, don't seem to understand. So I've got these little covers on here that will snap closed, hopefully to help keep dust keep out of the way and keep those things clean. I would put those next to one another, but these are actually a little bit wider than the spacing between jacks here, so I had to space them out a little bit. And then what I did there is I actually used the spaces in between to provide SDI inputs in case I need to hook up a camera over SDI locally. In addition to that, I also have an HDMI input, which goes to, I know you can't see it very well, but this is a BiDirectional microconverter, 3G version from Blackmagic. This provides conversion 2 ways, so SDI to HDMI and HDMI back to SDI. That way I can have the SDI connections that the switcher requires, at the same time have an HDMI input and an HDMI output here on this back panel. Makes it real convenient to have a single unit that's providing both. Next things we have here are 4 general purpose SDI outputs. I can route any signal that I want to those. Generally speaking, that's probably going to be the program feed, but it can be anything that I want. So if I wanted to have a dedicated output from one particular camera, I can use the routing capability of that switcher, of the Constellation switcher, to do that. The last connections I have over here are for audio. Rather than just having XLRs or just TRS, I went with these Neutrik combo connectors, which will accept either one. So if I'm in a venue where they happen to hand me an XLR connector, I can just pop that in. If they hand me a TRS, I can just also pop that right in. I don't have to use any adapter cables or anything. It just accepts either one of those. With my previous iteration of this, I essentially only had XLR inputs, and very often I would get mono feeds from house, and so I'd always need to carry an XLR splitter in order to get audio into both the left and right inputs. Fortunately, with the newer Blackmagic switchers, you can actually split those up in software, and so I could actually only have a signal go into audio left, and then I can go into the ATEM software control, tell it that XLR input is now 2 separate inputs, and that way it basically gets treated as mono. So I was able to eliminate some additional hardware there, and the hardware that's actually been problematic as well. So very easy to input audio on here. The other thing that this rack used to have that it does not have now is a separate audio compressor. I actually had a Behringer Minicom 800 in here in order to handle the task of keeping the audio levels consistent, bringing it down when it gets too loud, and otherwise boosting it up in order to make sure that the signal levels are as loud as they need to be. With the new Constellation, it has that capability built in, so I was able to eliminate that Minicom from this and then rely on the audio mixer, compressor, equalizer capabilities that are built right into the ATEM Constellation unit itself. So very nice. Always nice to eliminate a piece of equipment from your chain whenever you possibly can. One of the things I did with this switcher, with this rack, is I took the MultiView outputs of this switcher, which are fully independent of all the others, and I routed those back into inputs. That gives me some capabilities that I wouldn't have otherwise in terms of how those signals are routed. So I took MultiView 1, routed that back, connected it with a physical SDI cable back to input 19, and MultiView 2, and input that back into input 20 on the switcher. And then I'm able to take advantage of the routing capabilities of the switcher in order to send that to where I need to. Alright, these fiber ports that I have on here, this is actually how I connect up my cameras. I don't run SDI cables to my cameras because there's actually a more convenient, easier way to do that, and that is with optical fiber. So this is an optical fiber cable. This is what we call a single mode cable, and it has LC connectors. You can tell you've got the right one when working with this type of equipment by the blue connector that's here. But I'm able to connect these things together, the cameras and the switcher, with cables like this. So basically just flip open the door, insert the connector and lock it, and that's it. And then from there I can run the signal over fiber to wherever it needs to go. And then on the other end I use these Blackmagic camera converters. This obviously has fiber, but it also has lots of other connections here. So if we go through it, the most critical ones, SDI in and SDI out. So SDI in comes from camera, but if you have a camera that doesn't support SDI, it also has HDMI in as well. So you can use either one of those. It doesn't matter. It automatically does a conversion internally. The SDI out would normally go to a monitor, but if you want to use monitors that don't support SDI, it also has an HDMI out there as well. And both of those signals are active all of the time. So in this way, signal from camera goes over fiber to the video switcher. Video signal from the switcher comes back to the camera converter, and then I can connect that up to an HDMI or SDI monitor. So that allows the camera operators to see the program feed if they want to see exactly whatever is live at any given point in time. Additionally, we have over here some connections for headsets. So this unit, in addition to sending video to and from the Flypack, also does intercom as well. So over a single cable, I've got video going 2 directions. I've got intercom. This also carries tally information as well. So whenever a camera is live, the little LEDs on here will light up, and then a red box will appear in the monitor for the camera operator whenever their camera is actually live. It's not a perfect Kali solution, but it usually works well enough for the camera operators. A few other things here. Obviously it's got your fiber connection, and then it has a power connection. This unit actually has a battery built into it, and that battery seems to last for 3 to 4 hours typically. I've seen it go a little longer, but that's kind of the limit. Now flip this around to the other side and let you see kind of what that looks like from this side. So from left to right, we've got a battery level indicator. As mentioned, it has a battery in it. It has an optical indicator indicating when it's receiving a fiber signal from the video switcher. A video indicator letting you know when it's receiving a video signal from a connected camera. A button here labeled program that lets you switch between viewing the program feed from the switcher or turn that off and you view your local camera on your monitor. Buttons for setting the level of the microphone for your intercom, power to turn it on and off, button for setting your camera number, that way it knows whenever you're live, if you're set it to camera number 1, whenever camera 1 is live, that's when you get your tally box. A button for setting your headphone level, and then a push to talk button, so you can press that to talk to the technical director, or double tap it if you want to leave your microphone open for some period of time. So that's the camera converter. In a nutshell, these things are really cool. I use these things an awful lot, not only with my trailer, but also with my Flypack as well. One of the things that I always keep with this unit is this USB hub/Ethernet device, and I always leave that connected with this Ethernet cable. But that makes sure that I always have an Ethernet connection available with any connected laptop. Most laptops these days don't have Ethernet in them anymore, so I always keep this little adapter at all times. I'm going to start including one also as USB-C as well, because I'm finding that the laptops that need to be connected very often include USB-C, but I'll have that as part of this basic kit, and it'll be available to anybody who needs to use that. Now, I mentioned signal routing a little bit earlier. One of the advantages that these newer constellations have is that you can route any signal to any output. So it's got 12 outputs, you can do anything you want with those. And I've taken advantage of that here. So for example, these 2 monitors are on independent outputs of that switcher. So right now I happen to have it routed from MultiView and program, but I can change that at any point in time. So for example, if I wanted to change this monitor to show me camera 1 for whatever reason, I just go into the menu, say, go to Outputs, and then choose Output Mon L9, which basically means it's the left monitor, and it's connected to output 9, say Set, and then I can scroll through here and choose, say in this case I want to select camera HDMI 9, which is the feed from this camera. So so there we go. Now I'm watching the input 9 on that monitor instead of the MultiView. If I want to go back to MultiView, I just basically say Set again and then scroll down to that input 19 that I mentioned a moment ago, and there we go. Now I've got MultiView 1 on there. If I want to change this one over here, I just go to change output 10, and here I want to say, for example, do MultiView 2. That's input 20. So MultiView 2 20 set, and there we go. Now I'm looking at the second MultiView output of the switcher on that monitor. Let me change that back here real quick to ME1. There, so we're watching the program feed. Similarly, the recorders are also set up the same way. So if I wanted to change the signal that was going to my HyperDeck recorder here, I can do that. Likewise, on the back, the fiber outputs are normally programmed, but I could change that. I could send the MultiView to the camera operators just by changing the way that signal is routed within the Constellation, just by reassigning that output there as well. Likewise, the HDMI and the fiber optic port on the optical fiber converter that was near the top, those are also routable as well. So I'm able to basically route any signal I need from any input to any output. There are some caveats associated with that, though. Those outputs are going through the built-in scaler that is scaler and frame rate converter that is included as part of the Constellation. So for example, if my switcher is running at 29.97 and I've got a source connected that's running at 60 frames per second, the output is only going to have the 30 frame per second, 29.97 frame per second version of that. Also, the audio is replaced. So if I wanted to do an isolated camera feed on one of the recorders here, I can route the signal, but it's going through the converter, and it no longer has its native audio from the camera. It's whatever audio is on program 1 on the switcher. So something to keep in mind. It's not a straight pass-through. It does go through the converter on all of the outputs that are on the switcher. Now, in terms of how I'm going to control all of this, well, there's a number of things. For really simple events where I'm just cutting between cameras, the controls on the front panel are just going to be enough. I'm not going to need to necessarily worry about doing anything more than that. But the number of times when that happens is actually going to be fairly low. I like to take advantage of some of the more advanced functionality that you're not going to be able to get access to from the front panel. So I'm going to be supplementing that with one or both of these panels. Now, the first thing that I will be using, probably my primary control, is going to be, and actually has been, this XKeys controller. This is the XK80. This has 80 buttons, so 8 rows of 10 buttons apiece. And I've got these kind of color-coded according to function. So the blue buttons down here let me change the assignment of the preview bus, so basically selecting what shot's going to be next. The red buttons here control the program bus, so if I need to cut immediately without going through selection and then cut or an auto transition, that's available on the red buttons here. The green buttons here allow me to choose the different types of transition that I'm doing, so I can do a mix, or with shift go up to dip. I can do a wipe, or I can do a DVE, or do shift to go up to the sting transition. And I've got buttons here for selecting the duration of the transition. So 15 frames, 30 frames, or with shift I can do 10 or 60 frames there as well. I also have a fade to black button here, and then an animated transition, which I use with my SuperSource animated macros that I've created and take advantage of a lot. Moving up a little bit farther, I've got these orange buttons here, which allow me to control the second mixed effects engine, so ME2 on the switcher. Don't necessarily use that a ton, but that's really handy for those times when I do and I have a feed going out to a projector and I want to have that be different than whatever I happen to be streaming. Having those on their own dedicated buttons is certainly very convenient. Got a couple buttons here for controlling the media players within the switcher. And then up at the top, I've got buttons for setting the upstream keys on and off while I turn toggling the background layer on and off for the keyer, upstream keyer. A couple buttons here for toggling the downstream keyer. I've got a button that's dedicated to putting upstream key 1 in a picture-in-picture window. A couple buttons here for doing overlays, CG, computer graphics, character graphics, or whatever you want to say, for 8 seconds apiece. Got a button here for toggling the preview transition button, and then a shift button here. This row of buttons here is kind of proprietary, something that only I do as far as I know. So I've got buttons here that will allow me to take whatever source is on the preview bus and assign that into the super source boxes. So pressing this assigns to super source box 1, this to super source box 2, and then shift allows me to go to boxes 3 and 4. So that way I can very easily assign those at the beginning, but I can also reassign them in the middle of an event as well. So if I've got a box up on screen and I need to change its source, I can do that with those buttons. I just basically assign that to the preview and then use that button to change that assignment. And then I've got a few other buttons here to route sources as well. So I've got this button here which takes whatever's on preview, sends that upstream key 1 or 2. This one sends to downstream key 1 or 2. And this one takes the CG source, the designated CG source, and assigns that to upstream or downstream key 1. These last 5 buttons that are labeled layout, those are used with my SuperSource animation macro that I've created and made available here on my channel. So I can pre-assign 5 different layouts, and then press one of those buttons to jump directly to that and perform the animation to go from whatever is currently on screen to one of those layouts, and the code automatically figures out the cleanest, smoothest, easiest way to do that. So this is what I use the most. This is super handy. I've got a lot of functionality here in one place. Occasionally, though, I have, and probably do so less in the future, but use a Stream Deck, the original 15-button unit, with BitFocus Companion to control the switcher. The main reason I don't like doing that is I get so much less functionality with so many fewer buttons. We're talking 80 buttons versus 15. Even the big Stream Deck only has 32. So I'm really limited in how much functionality I can get on a dedicated button without having to change between different layers. So it's there as an option. This is the kind of thing that I would, if I'm going to use it, I would probably take it and then attach it to a tripod so the camera operator has easy access to it. If the camera operator is also acting as technical director, allow them to have easy access to control the switcher with that. Alright, so there you go. This is my Flypack. I call it version 3.0. It's technically more probably like version 12 or something like that. But version 3 of this iteration with Blackmagic rack mount video switchers. This is the 3rd version of it. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below or join us over on Discord. Probably more likely to get a quick answer there. If any of this equipment is something that you're interested in purchasing, I appreciate you using the links that have popped up throughout the video or are available in the description down below. That really helps out the channel quite a lot. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I do video production related content around once a week. Even if you watch me regularly, please make sure that you are currently subscribed so you don't miss any of the videos that I put out. You automatically see those in your feed. So that's going to do it for now. So thanks everybody for watching and have a fantastic day.